My arm is complete again.
For our Halloween month, we thought it'd be interesting to draw a parallel between two movies that are very different but come from a pretty similar set of archetypes. The Victorian Era Penny Dreadful was a British version of the serial literature that would become popular as the dime store novels in early 20th century America. It was one of the earliest versions of mass-produced pop culture. Often sold at executions, these were sensationalist stories which came in weekly parts for a penny. One such Penny Dreadful series was The String of Pearls. The String of Pearls was the story of Sweeney Todd, a crazed barber on Fleet Street who cut his customers with a straight razor. That is, if they didn't die from falling through the revolving trapdoor under his barber chair and breaking their necks. At some point, this reversed, with Sweeney Todd first cutting them and then putting them through the revolving door. Honestly, so much easier. He gave the corpses to his neighbor, Mrs. Lovett, who baked them into meat pies. This serial ran from 1846 to 1847 originally. Other Penny Dreadful characters included Spring-Heeled Jack, a demon-like creature who terrorized the streets of London, grabbing women and clawing them up. This urban legend caused a mass panic, first in the 1830s and 1840s, as people in London and then northern England swore they saw Spring-Heeled Jack. These urban legends, ghost stories, and sensationalist literature were common in a quickly industrializing and extremely unequal Victorian society. Spring-Heeled Jack supposedly returned in 1870 and 1888, which happened to be the same year another Jack began terrorizing the streets of London.
What did he promise you? Money? Lots of money? For you to become a doctor, was it? But he's laughing at you. Because now you're going to hang.
Jack the Ripper quickly became an international celebrity after 5 murders, the canonical 5, occurred in London's Whitechapel district in 1888. Starting in August, women, most of whom were sex workers, began being found in Whitechapel disemboweled, brutally cut into pieces, and left for police to find. Police flooded the streets of Whitechapel in London's East End. The story went international when a letter was found signed Jack the Ripper, which said, among other things, "I'm down on whores, and I shan't quit ripping them until I get buckled." This and a second letter, which both began "Dear Boss," led to a flood of letters, many of which were probably faked by newspapermen trying to get in on the story. And that's kind of the point of a lot of this. The line between real and fake gets blurred in a rush to try to bolster these urban legends.
And it goes by the name of London.
2 of the movies we are exploring this month come directly out of this period of sensationalist 19th century Britain. Starting tonight with Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and continuing on October 17th with Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy, a modern take on the Jack the Ripper murders. The Jack the Ripper idea appears throughout Hitchcock's work, starting with his feature film The Lodger in 1927, and arguably continuing with Psycho in 1960. Frenzy and Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, Both grab up these 19th century archetypes. They'll be fun to explore in spooky October. Sweeney Todd, of course, is a wholly fictional character created for the Penny Dreadfuls. However, the story did come from older urban legends, as Charles Dickens referenced those preparers of cannibalistic pastry in Martin Chuzzlewit. Within a year of the serialization, George Dibdin Pitt had created the play The String of Pearls, or The Fiend of Fleet Street, for the Britannia Theatre. Pitt added a catchphrase, "I'll polish 'em off." Then Edward Lloyd, the original publisher of the People's Periodical that published the first serialization, published a longer 92-episode serialization from 1847 to 1848. So the original serialization, the play, and then the longer version all came within 2 years. That's how popular Sweeney Todd had become. The book was plagiarized and adapted in America as Sweeney Todd or the Ruffian Barber. And then it was once again adapted in 1865 and 1875 as it was turned into a play and then a book of the play. In 1936, George King adapted the George Dibdin Pitt play into Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, a movie starring British horror star Todd Slaughter.
Oh, what a beautiful knife. That's the knife that Mrs. Lovett used in her pie shop before I polished her off. And this is the pistol with which I shot Maria Martin.
In 1973, the British playwright Christopher Bond turned Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, into a modern play. Bond decided to give Sweeney Todd a more sympathetic backstory, naming him Benjamin Barker, a barber who was thrown into an Australian penal colony for 15 years on trumped-up charges by Judge Turpin, who raped his wife and stole his daughter. He returns to Fleet Street as Sweeney Todd, swearing to get revenge first on Turpin and then on humanity itself. This is when Stephen Sondheim, Harold Prince, and Arthur Lawrence, whose name you might remember from our Rope episode last month, decided to adapt Bond's play into a musical.
Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, the new Stephen Sondheim Harold Prince musical thriller starring Angela Lansbury and Glenn Carrier.
Sondheim was a big fan of Christopher Bond's play and believed that the music would heighten the drama.
Charity towards the world, my pet. We'll take the customers that we can get.
It opened starring Len Cariou and Angela Lansbury in 1979 on Broadway, and then London's West End in 1980. British audiences, who I'm sure had seen every iteration of Sweeney Todd, were largely unenthusiastic, but American audiences loved it.
Tim Burton had actually come to me about 20 years ago. He was a big fan of the piece. He'd seen it in London. It was not a success in London the first go-round. It has been since, but the very first time it was done in London, they didn't like it.
Sondheim's play was also shaped by Angela Lansbury, who only agreed to star in it if Mrs. Lovett could get a much bigger music hall role.
I thought, well, it's certainly something to consider, and they're very enthusiastic, these two, and they're brilliant. They must have something up their sleeve for this show. So, but on the other hand, you know, the old star said, hey, wait a minute, this is called Sweeney Todd. How does Mrs. Lovett fit in, you know? It's not called Nellie Lovett, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. It's Sweeney Todd. So I thought, I hope, you know, is this a good part?
Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter were both huge fans of the musical, with Tim Burton claiming to have seen the musical 13 times between 1979 and 1980. And so, in 2007, Tim Burton adapted Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, starring who else but Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter as Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett.
First got together with Tim, he was talking about it and saying that he'd been marinating this idea of the musical. And it was one of our talking points. We got something in common. We both love Sweeney Todd, you know. And that's about it, though.
It was Tim Burton's first live-action musical, and Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, first time doing a musical on screen. The adaptation, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's not Tim Burton's most creative work, but it's a good adaptation nonetheless, and Tim Burton makes it stylistic and gory while keeping the contained feeling of the stage play. The stage play famously has a revolving and very mobile set, with the barber chair having to act as a chute, and filming an adaptation solved many logistical problems while Tim Burton made sure to keep the very contained stage play feeling. Please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/movie night extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan is currently on tour for the next 3 weeks on the West Coast. Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends is doing the adult prom tour with Lung. If you're in any of these cities, you can get tickets. To see the dates and venues, go to neutronfriends.com. KT Baldassaro is an actress, director, and writer who wrote and co-directed and also starred in Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in quite a few horror movies. She's also voice acting in the scripted podcast series, The Starwell Foundation, an audio drama set in the city of superheroes, wherever podcasts are listened to. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Kristina Oakes, This Barbie is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/cosmopolitics, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Cosmopolitics. Send her some subs on Twitch. Tim LaFolette is a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and has a TED Talk, Community, the Missing Ingredient to Self-Acceptance, as well as being a performer in countless musicals, a singer in the Portland Opera Chorus, and doing a solo cabaret entitled Live Your Life. I, of course, am your host, Forrest Miller. I have a magical miracle elixir that will make your hair grow. Okay, don't ask why it hasn't worked on me. That's literally a personal question. Andy tried it. I shaved the Pope one time. Ask him. No, not that Pope. The German one.
We need that cricket.
Ooh. Oh, fun fact. Did you guys know that Johnny Depp and Len Cariou actually were in a movie together?
Really? What movie?
Secret Window.
All right. Well, welcome to Movie Night Extravaganza.
Boom.
Hey.
Right with the trivia.
Yep. You know me.
Immediately in there with trivia. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you.
We talked about Chicago. Was that a year ago? It had to have been like almost a year
I think
ago,
so.
right?
Yeah. I think it was like the
shortly
summer.
after I moved.
Yeah. And of course, we have KT filling in for Conan for the next 3 weeks as a permanent co-host. And look, she's at the top of the screen. I've no longer gender segregated the screen.
It's insane. All I had to do is bake Conan into a meat pie. It's fine. Tim, I think you have the best experience for tonight. You've done a production of this, right?
Yeah. So I was in the Portland Opera Chorus in a production of this. Gosh, when was it? I want to say it was like 2016 during the summer. So yeah, and we did use the original set. We rented the set that Angela Lansbury had been on. Nice. And so it was kind of interesting. It was a very old school set, but it was kind of cool because it's like you just sort of you felt like you're a part of history with it. It was definitely very challenging music and just a very interesting production to be a part of because they kept it pretty traditional. So yeah. So it was fun to watch the movie and see like, ooh, what were the parts that were different from the stage play versus the movie, and like I thought they did a really great job with it as far as like the adaptation to kind of use the magic of movie making to kind of bring you into the story.
But I think they've also like kept this movie pretty contained, right? Like, it feels far more like you're watching a stage play than, let's say like Edward Scissorhands, right? Like, which I rewatched for this episode, like, which is a movie that you kind of feel those wide open spaces. This movie doesn't really. I mean, I guess in the beginning when they go into London, but even then, it feels kind of like CGI'd the way that they're going into London on the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. When was the first time you guys saw this film? Because I saw it. We had to get our parents' permission to see it in the theater. I went with two friends, and the whole time when my friend's like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "This blood is so fake. I can't believe you're scared of this movie." I mean, she desperately wanted to see it, but even then, she's still like, "I'm scared of that film still." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, Megan. It's been how many years? It's been like it's been a long time."
the blood I think that they used for the movie was like orange because
if
you watch them filming it, everybody is in like these really bright colors that they then turn down with the saturation.
Yep, they really had to, yeah.
I think Burton wanted specifically to make this more bloody than a stage production.
Yeah.
Although the stage productions were still using fake blood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought they did a good job with that, as far as like it was a good in between on the blood and gore mix of things. It wasn't like, I think it was more than what can be accomplished on a stage play, but it also wasn't like Quentin Tarantino level ridiculousness, you know?
Or you know, just because it's another musical, Repo the Genetic Opera.
Yeah.
And then there's an Evil Dead musical that they do give tarps to the first few rows. So
oh yeah,
you know, they're trying to get the blood in there.
Did they do that with any of the Sweeney Todd? You know, they've revived it multiple times.
Oh yeah, there's been so many different adaptations. The one that I like is with.
But did they ever do the tarp? Because they've done that for a bunch of different shows. Like they
one
give like
production, the actors had to play their own instruments, which was a 2006 revival, which I thought was interesting. But it was very dark and very modern, and that's why I thought like, oh, Tim Burton's gonna make it the aesthetics almost like the 2006 revival. But I just was thrown off with the actors having to play their own instruments when the other actors were singing a number. It was very contained, very intimate production too, but I just was so distracted by them playing those instruments.
It was a very, I remember seeing like the touring company of that version, and it was like, it was really pared down. It was like the staging, I want to say it was like if you weren't like on stage, you were still on stage, but you were like sitting on a chair on the back. So it was like, I remember that being very strange. And it's like, oh, and they're playing while they're, and I think like Patti LuPone was in that production, and I think on Broadway,
Yeah,
so
I feel like,
I
feel like Company is a better musical to be like that, because they've made it so many times as well as a Sondheim show. But when it came to the play, I like what they took away from the actual stage production, because they were thinking of doing the prelude with singing featuring Anthony Stewart Head. But he does have
and Christopher Lee as well.
Yes, and he has Anthony Stewart Head has a little cameo after the shaving competition. So, but I do like that.
Hey, just so it doesn't get lost in the fray, we got a super chat from Chris, and he says it's his birthday today. So happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
And,
happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Thanks for the super chat. We'll tell Conan you say hi.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting question, because you're saying that they did such an intimate version of it. And whenever I think of it, I often think like, usually opera companies do this, right? You know, like large, big production houses are going to do a Sweeney Todd. So that's a very, at least it's new, kind of different way to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's really good that there's so many different filmed. I mean, we have the one with George Hearn and Angela Lansbury, obviously, to like follow through, because I mean, that's a good idea though, to try to get the close to the original stage production as possible to be filmed. But it's been interpreted so many different times. Like the most recent one is with Josh Groban and Ali Ashford, and it got rave reviews as well.
Groban's great. People are gonna love him no matter what.
But notice that the cast is getting younger and younger with each revival.
You know, that's kind of interesting, because I was reading a trivia fact about the casting of the young characters in this, where the actress is much older than they wanted, but also the male character is much younger and is normally played as like a mentally deficient older man.
Toby.
That's an interesting spin.
He was played by a child, and I was like, oh, it hits differently when it's a child, because like most of the time, I see it played by like a 20-something. And like that they have some kind of a learning disability or something. So it definitely is a different experience with the child killing him at the end, you know, like,
and rewatching it, it's like a who's been in a Harry Potter film, because I remember when because I mean, the only people that weren't in a Harry Potter film were Sacha Baron Cohen, the guy who plays the kid who plays Toby, and the actress who plays Joanna, and you know, the mother, Lucy. So I was like, but then of course Johnny Depp was Grindelwald, and I'm like Tim Burton just decided to pick like popular Harry Potter actors and just cast them in, because this was at the like almost like near the peak of the popularity of the Harry Potter films. So I was
All
like,
right, so this brings in this clip that I've really been wanting to play, with you on here. So they didn't actually hear Johnny Depp sing anything before they cast him in this.
Yeah.
And I guess like Johnny Depp started out as a musician, obviously, but like he wasn't a singer, like he just
like a rock music,
Yeah. So and he had never sung anything. So Tim Burton like was like, oh well, I want to cast Johnny Depp because he always casts Johnny Depp in everything. But then there was like a cross your fingers that he actually can sing. Because I mean, Kristina, I know you like Cry Baby.
Yeah.
And like he sings in that, but it's obviously
he lip syncs in that.
Yeah.
Tim came to visit us at our house, and he brought me like a CD of Sweeney Todd, the Angela Lansbury, stuff, and he brought it and said, I don't know if you ever heard this, give it a listen, I was, okay, gave it a listen. Thought, wow, that's interesting. And then, whatever, 5-6 years later, the question comes, hey, what do you think? You think you can sing?
Richard and I were talking one day, and this was after probably maybe a couple months, and I was comfortable. I knew he could do it, but nobody had heard, and so we just had this fantasy of like, he starts singing, and it's like, oh my God, what the hell is that?
We're here at the studio. Sets were being constructed. Wardrobe was being made. Other actors and commitments were being made. Studio, literally, we were spending millions of dollars on the picture. Not one person on earth had heard Johnny sing. And he's the star of the picture.
38's Romeo, take one. You're in a merry mood today, Mr.
Your delights are catching fire from one man to the next.
I think at the end of the day, Stephen Sondheim didn't hear him sing before he had decided that he would accept the fact that Johnny was going to do it. And you just look at Johnny's body of work and you realize that, this is a man who holds himself to the highest possible standards. And we all knew that if he said he could do it, he could do it. It helped to know that, in fact, and it's a little known fact, that he originally came to Los Angeles not as an actor, but as a musician.
What I did was I called up an old pal of mine that I had played in bands with for years. In fact, the guy he was the singer, pretty much the main singer of the band. And he has a recording studio, and I called him and said, I got this stuff I'd like to try and sing.
Well, singing Sweeney Todd, they say, is like an opera more than Broadway. It's really hard. There's a lot of half steps. There's a lot of, chromatic lines running up, and neither Johnny nor I can read music, so we were like using our ears and going, what is that? It's pretty funny to see a couple guys out of the rock and roll days trying to figure out this amazing piece of music, but at the end of the day, it's a song and a singer and a melody, and it could be complicated, but it was fun figuring it out. I called my friend upstairs who could read music and go, can you come down and tell us exactly what note this is? We went in my place and drank some wine for a bit and smoked a bunch of cigarettes, and then it was like, were you going to do this or what?
Just started kind of knocking them down one by one. Starting with my friends, that was the first thing I ever sang. Like basically that was the first song I ever sang in my life. That's pretty weird.
Honestly, when he did the first take of the first song we did, which is My Friends, basically had to talk back. I said, you want the good news or the bad news? He goes, give me the bad news. I said, the bad news, you're going to have to do this.
One day I was in my office on the phone. Tim bursts in and lays down a little cassette player and his headphones. And I didn't know what he was doing, and he walked out. So I got off the phone and put them on and listened to Johnny sing for the first time. And I just put it down, went into Tim's office, and we both just stared at each other with great relief. But we had the biggest smiles at each other because we knew we had a great voice with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, there was I can't read music either, but Tim's probably familiar with this, like with Sondheim's music, but Sondheim mostly uses the Dies Irae as like the song of death. He tweaks it, he manipulates it, he flips it, he does, like I watched a full video on it, and it's like how Sweeney Todd's music kind of spoils the movie. You kind of expect and know what's going to be happening if you really like, if you're a musical nerd and you really, really pay attention to like what the music is like leading towards. Which I found that to be quite fascinating, because I'm like, I cannot. If Conan were here, he might know more about this than any of us, clearly, because he probably knows how to read music more than we do.
I mean, maybe it's rock and roll.
I will say it is one of the, like, if you asked me of my, 16, 17 years in the opera chorus, like, what are the hardest pieces of music that I've worked on? And I would say, like, Sweeney Todd was one of them, and like Rake's Progress, which is by Stravinsky, is like the other one that was really difficult. Yeah, it's legit hard.
It's interesting that it's like opera, but then there's some scenes that are just straight up talked. You know what I mean? Which has to that has to be tough too, because like being in the state of mind where you're doing the operatic part of it, right? And then you have to like jump out of that and kind of have a scene with dialogue and then jump back into it. Like in some ways that feels harder than having a thing that's just straight opera. Not that operas don't also have some dialogue to them, but like I don't.
Yeah. Which is weird, because I was trying to find a like more precise what is the difference between a musical and an opera definition, and it's kind of loose.
I think it's very loose. I think so much of it is like stylistic more than anything, because I think there's like Sweeney Todd really does kind of ride the line. Another one is Les Mis. That's like, I think that Les Mis is mostly done by musical theater companies, even though it probably could qualify as an opera, because I don't think there's actually any spoken lines in it. And there are operas that do have spoken lines in them. Like Magic Flute has plenty of spoken lines throughout. So it's just, it's more of a stylistic thing. And like, and you're right. I think that a lot of opera companies do Sweeney Todd more so than musical theater. And again, I think some of that's the technical difficulty of the music, and like just being able to sing the music and being able to do that justice. But also it's just hard music. And I think musical theater tends to do more like, I don't know how they're doing it, like 8 shows per week singing these roles.
Yeah.
Because some of them are challenging, because like opera companies, they'll usually do things in repertory. So it's like, you'll sing these couple of nights, and then they'll be doing a different opera production with a different cast the next couple of nights. And so it's not the same people singing the same roles every time. I think probably the way they get away with it with musical theater companies doing them is like having covers do certain matinees and whatnot. But
I mean, Sondheim in general is very, very difficult to do. I mean, I think his he's probably the greatest composer in our lifetime. It's same with Harold Prince as a director. But it's fascinating to me how even Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter and Alan Rickman, they were all able to actually do their best at singing Sondheim at their level, at the best of their abilities, and able to actually pull it off phenomenally.
As like non-singers.
And we don't think of them as singers,
Rickman, I know, did a lot of theater, but I don't know if it was any of it was musical. I can't speak for that, so I don't want to. I know his screen appearances were not musical, except for.
And I think Kristina asked earlier, like, when did we all see this movie? And I actually saw this movie on Tuesday. That was the first time I saw this movie. And I have to say, it was because I did that thing that I do where I just decide I know a movie before I've seen a movie. And I'm not a big fan of when Johnny Depp and Tim Burton come together. Latter day. Loved Edward Scissorhands, and it's kind of jumping the shark for me. But in seeing this and reading the trivia about how much Helena Bonham Carter auditioned, how much Sacha Baron Conan auditioned. Sacha Baron Conan sang the entire I think the entirety of Fiddler to try and get this role. And people were saying in the chat,
which is kind of funny when you think about the fact that this is like Sacha Baron Cohen, like right after Borat.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, he's at like his Borat peak, right, with everybody doing like Borat impressions, and it's pretty funny to imagine him like walking in with the entire book of Fiddler on the Roof, singing it, and then like not taking that as like a fucking Borat or like Ali G-esque prank. Like,
Just imagine, him singing Matchmaker, my wife.
Yeah.
My wife.
And his performance in this is nuanced, and it could be exaggerative and maybe like borderline racist, but it is nuanced and fun. And really, people were saying in the chats that he's underrated in this performance, and I completely agree.
Yeah,
I also agree.
I mean,
He can sing.
He's
Yeah.
pretending to be Italian in this, and
Which is
like,
anti-Italian discrimination.
Yeah, but it's pretty funny for him to be a British guy who pretends to be other ethnicities, being an Italian guy, a British guy pretending he's a British guy pretending to be a
Catholic
British guy,
Italian
pretending to be an
dude.
Italian guy. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
layers of like meta to the performance of his Pirelli bit. But yeah, I think that I really like him in this, and yeah, that's another, like, I think I saw this in 2007 or 2008. Like, like I was like just became a teenager or something, like, and it just come out. Like, I got it on DVD. I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I think I saw it like just as it came out on DVD. And but also like at the same time I had watched like a whole bunch of like Ali G clips on YouTube, because like they had the entirety of that show on YouTube, and I don't think I'd seen Borat yet. Like, I think I was too young for Borat, but like I'd seen like all the episodes of the show that he had done, because at that time, like, what else was really on YouTube? The people would like put up like the 360.
Carl.
Yeah, so yeah, I remember being like, is that Ali G coming out in a jumpsuit? And they also give him, I mean, I don't know if they give him this, but like he's wearing like a cod piece, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, he's wearing like a whole.
He's like hanging dong when he comes out, and like it's that kind of crazy like out, like it's like an alpha character that he's almost playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that just gets automatically just wrecked by fucking Sweeney Todd.
In like a matter of seconds.
I do like that. Well, I wish that they had kept the part like in that song, and I was talking about this in the group chat, but I wish that they kept the part of the song where they're also like the dentists for the town. So it's like they have to shave and then pull a tooth, and like one of the things is that he pulls the tooth of Toby. He like pulls an extra tooth that Toby has, and that's like one of the ways that he abuses him. And like I kind of wish they had kept that in.
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of things they took out, like the Judge Turpin's Joanna song.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I mean, this was coming out, I think, a year after like Da Vinci Code. They made it into a movie with the with Silas the monk that they cut to him just self-flagellating like that. Like, I wonder how much if that played into it. Like, I feel like the self-flagellation thing was really, I mean, it might just be too dark for Tim Burton. Tim Burton, like, as much as he's like a gothic filmmaker kind of, he does keep it like pretty family friendly.
He's like,
I mean,
topic,
they might have had to. They might have had to send Sacha Baron Cohen to dentist school, because they did have him train with a barber for like several months to learn how to hold the razors just right. Actually, they had to give Johnny Depp a kind of pop out one, because he was very uncomfortable handling the real ones.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he might have actually.
Yeah, it might have just been like, hey, cut it back here.
You know what's funny about the Joanna song? When I was younger, I would listen to like Sirius radio or whatever, because we had Dish Network.
Satellite, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought Joanna was about two men fighting over a woman. But then as I got older, I'm like, oh, it's the love wants to be with a girl, the guy wants to be reunited with his daughter. But when you actually listen to Sweeney's lyrics, it's more like, I want you to be just like her. I want you to be just like, your mother, my wife. I want to be with you. And I'm like, okay, babe, you know what?
I'm so glad you said that. I thought maybe that was just me.
Nope. The older you get, the more you realize, oh, this song's actually kind of perverted from Sweeney's perspective.
Yeah, like you're describing her as the physicality of her mother a lot.
Yeah,
that's true too. That comment's absolutely right.
But yeah, no, Alan Rickman did do a Rex Harrison. That's why
it was a very good Rex Harrison, especially if you're picturing him from My Fair Lady, which is one of my favorite musicals of all time.
Yeah.
He's expected to be like, women are irrational. That's all I hear. But that definitely is how fucking the Judge Turpin character feels about women, the same way that fucking he feels about women in My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that song definitely is perverted. And he's like, it's also like kind of creepy. I mean, I know that he's like a barber, but like he's really obsessed with like the yellow hair part of it. Like,
yeah.
He's like, oh, like,
why do you think I wore this wig?
Yeah, but it's like the whole entire thing, right? Like, and then he's describing his wife, and the one thing that he can remember about her is like she also had yellow hair. Like, there's like,
I keep thinking like use some T18 Wella, like get that toned out. You do not want to have yellow brassy hair, man.
Yeah, get that.
Oh, and that's just reminded me. It's like they did cut a whole little like musical number about that too. In the stage play, there's a whole thing about like there's gold and there's flaxen and there's yellow and there's like give all the different versions to make sure that they got the right version to be able to find Joanna.
Yeah, I forgot that Victor Gabor was actually
and he's like has to repeat it in the same, which is like amazing use of that like operatic, because a lot of the same themes throughout this like repeat, right? Like the variations or whatever of the same kind of like, especially when they have the chorus come in and do like the prelude, and then like every act of the of the opera, I guess, like they reintroduce it with the same and it's the music from the beginning of the movie, like the same.
Yes, that's what exactly. It's that the song of death, and they keep manipulating, because the thing with Sondheim said in this interview, he's talked about it. He's like, I wanted to find like something very morbid to use for the musical for like the music, and he knew about the Dies Irae. And he's like, you can tweak it, you can manipulate it, you can flip it on its, you could do so much with just 3 simple notes. And I'm like, that's the genius of Sondheim. Because I mean, there are other composers who just rehash the same, rehash like the same few notes over and over again. But he did it in a way that was like throughout, you wouldn't even know it was that those 3 notes were being used in different variations. But with Andrew Lloyd Webber, he always repeats himself.
It's interesting that like the less popular West End original like version, right, when they went, and like everyone in London was kind of just tired of Sweeney Todd, I think, by that point. Yeah. But like it's interesting that Tim Burton happened to be in London at that point and saw it 13 times in like a very short space.
Back when you could afford to see a show.
Yeah. So he just kept going. Like, I think it was within like 2 months he saw it 13 times, which I don't even know how you spend that much time unless you're an actor. Like how much time, how you want to spend that much time in a theater. But
I mean, it was also a different era, because like I remember that was when I was very, very little, and we used to live right near a dollar theater, and the dollar theater would actually show movies how they used to do it, where like you go, you buy a ticket, you go in at any time. So like if you miss the beginning of it, you sit through there. Yeah, no, I hear you, but like the point is that we were appropriating media very differently back then. So I'm just using that as an example, because remember with Psycho, that's how people used to watch Psycho, and Alfred Hitchcock, told people like, don't spoil the ending. You must get there at the beginning of the film, kind of stuff, and they had like a whole ad campaign, because that's how people watched media. So somebody going to the theater 13 times in like a year or two to see the same play makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
He was working on it for quite a while, like 20 years before we actually get to what we saw. I mean, if you look at the trivia online, the number of actors who were attached prior to Depp is like a literal who's who. Steve Martin, I kind of would have been cool with that, because I just do really love him in Little Shop of Horror.
Yes.
But also then like Al Pacino. So it goes up and it goes down.
I could just see that now. Like, do you remember what your wife looked like? She had a great ass.
Tim Curry.
Every single time he slits his throat. Hooah!
It would have been.
I mean,
Didn't Al Pacino sing?
Yeah. If they kept making it like a comedy, Steve Martin would have, because in a way, it almost has very comedic aspects in, especially with like Angela Lansbury, like when Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Love are together, it's almost like a comedy when they're together, especially when they're singing, a little priest. So I'm like, Steve Martin would have, if they kept the comedy, made it not as dark as what it is, what we got, maybe it would have been a little bit lighter.
I just don't, because I think that Steve Martin did a good job in Little Shop of Horrors, but that's like one song.
Yeah,
and he kind of
he's a good singer. He is a good singer.
But like I don't know if he's like a Sondheim level good singer, right? Like,
neither are any of these
He
people.
goes on tour with his banjo, so like
Yeah.
man's musical.
So this
I
is
think he
interesting
could do
'cause-
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he could do
If
it.
Johnny Depp can do it, then
Yeah. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
of Sweeney Todd as like a satire for the whole concept of like urbanization and how the city will eat you alive, you could kind of up the camp. I could see a production of this that was more campy, and I might like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the stage productions it does add a lot more camp, especially to A Little Priest is a lot campier, and then I think they cut a lot of chorus sections from the thing, but like when she's serving all of the pies and all the people, like that's pretty campy too. We're just like the chorus is just scarfing down these meat pies and they're just kind of like hamming it up, living it up, like this is amazing. We're like feeding people their own friends and family. That's like, oh, this is dark but also funny. Like it's
good business. It's not even because it's a bloodlust. It's because capitalism. It's just good business.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also got to talk about the fact, everyone's like, this is like also like a tragic story. I'm like, it is, because Sweeney's blinded by revenge to the point that he ends up, spoiler alert, killing his own wife, not knowing who she is. And, seeing his own daughter, not knowing who she is.
It's like the revenge-induced psychosis by the end of it.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of good I think media about kind of that, like especially like I mean modern stuff, but like a lot of times like you kill somebody in like a show or something, right? And then someone else finds it, and then it's like, oh well, now this person's found it, that's a whole new thing, and then now this person's found it, that's a whole new thing. So I do think that that's like it's always an interesting theme when like they're like, how can we have this person find out about this murder, and then you have to like do something about that person,
Hide the
and then
body.
the next person,
Hide the body.
yeah, like it's like an ever extending web. Although in Victorian England, it feels like it would be a lot easier to not have that happen, because you're like,
I remember
they're smelling like human remains coming out of the chimney, and they're like, well, it stinks, but like I don't know what
Everything is burning right now, and the whole place stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's the other thing. One of the other songs that they cut was "City on Fire." I think they had.
Yes.
I think that Lucy sang a little bit of it, the beggar woman, but like it's a whole scene. It's like one of the hardest songs, and it's creepy and crazy. Like, they cut a lot of her stuff that like kind
in
of
the beginning. Sweeney's supposed to see her at the beginning of the show, but they did. I guess they did not want the beggar woman to be very, very noticeable throughout, because I guess they wanted to like make us forget about her and then be surprised, like, oh, she was his wife the whole time.
Yeah. I think they made. Oh.
No,
I think they also
there's the alms song that they cut. They have her do the alms for a beautiful or for a pitiful woman.
Miserable woman.
Right? They have that, but then they have it switch, and she's like asking like, guys, how would you like to like, she's trying to like sell her body to the guys, at like rapid speed, and then it switches again to the alms for a pitiful woman.
She's a little,
and they cut that part of it again. I think Tim Burton as like a family friendly person, but then they also cut Joanna having like some agency over wanting to leave. I think with the sailor, and like meeting like actually talking to him and doing that like kiss me number. Like both in both cases they kind of desexualize the Sweeney's family, to make it more straightforward, I guess, that he's just kind of idealizing them in his head, and they're like, because it makes it more complicated. I think if she really is in love with Antony as the sailor, and she's like eloping with him, and she has her own agency in it, and then the wife is walking around like trying to prostitute herself pretty much, which common occurrence in Victorian England. I mean, like to the point where Jack the Ripper was able to find like 10 prostitutes to murder in like a very short amount of time. So that's kind of a like, listening to the stage play version versus the Tim Burton version. Like they desexualize and I guess agency both of those characters.
Agreed.
Angela Lansbury was like sculpting penises out of pie dough, whenever she wasn't getting enough laughs. So like it's a very body film.
Yeah, I would imagine they would make the wife character a little bit more mentally unstable than they are portraying in this particular version. But again, I only have this as my depth of knowledge.
But Tim, Tim, what were you saying? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off. I just.
That's okay. That's okay. One person was bound to continue. So, yeah, I was gonna say kind of similar. It was like it altered the way that character kind of came across, and she came across as a lot more of a victim and less agency. It made you feel more like sad when he, when she gets killed at the end, that you're like, oh no, this poor woman, when it's like you don't get the whole full picture of like what her life after Benjamin Barker was shipped off. You don't get a full picture of what that was like.
Yeah, this almost feels like, oh no, if he had recognized her, they could have been happy together. Like there was no lady. That's
No
only
way
Sewell there.
They had not invented like antipsychotics yet, so I don't think. No, but like in the same way, right?
They had
like
cocaine.
Yeah, that makes that worse. But they had in the same way, right? Like Judge Turpin, I think Alan Rickman does a really good job being creepy as fuck without like the extra layers of like literal just rape and like constant assault and
well, they alluded to him raping Lucy in the beginning. Obviously. That's about as close as
the party.
And then the rest is just the creepiness of raising a child to fuck.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and in the stage play, they also they imply that it's both Beetle Bamford and Judge Turpin that gang rape her at the party.
Yeah.
At least in the song, right? Because when Angela Lansbury's like character, like when Mrs. Lovett is singing about it, she says that like both Judge Turpin and the Beetle became infatuated with her, and like the implication is that they like gang raped her at a party. So like which makes a lot of sense why she's so traumatized that she's kind of turned into like this half conscious, prostituted beggar woman on the street, more than kind of the kind of light implication when Judge Turpin just takes off the mask in the movie and then climbs on top of her. I think
everyone's laughing like,
Oh.
That's about as dark as it could get in a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
Sorry to hard tangent. I just want to ask a question of Tim, who's done a production of this. There is a trapdoor involved in this production. I mean, in all of them, or just traditionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally, I guess I can only speak for the production that I did, but it was, and they showed it in the video of like the original stage version, and that was how it went. It was like it flattened out, and people slid down, and they had to like crouch inside the. And that it was the same set piece. The piece that was the chair with the trap door was the same set piece as like you rotated it around, and then it was the pie shop was the other side of it.
So it wasn't like to a whole separate level. It was like a little horrible tomb.
Yeah, like it was it wasn't like an under the stage level. It was like within the platform. Like it was like how it showed the storefront. It was basically about like the height of a person or a little bit taller than like a person, and it was above that was where Sweeney was. So he was standing on top of that platform, but it didn't go like under the stage.
Yeah.
At least with that production. I'm sure there are other productions that, more modern productions than that, because it was like that was the late 70s, right? The original production. So
is it the same one as the 3 level? Like a lot of the time you see it almost like as it rotates, there's like a 3rd level to it where a character is able to like stand on the top of it and sing down to the characters on the bottom. I don't know if it's the original set that they did that with.
Yeah, he's standing. So like during the song Joanna, when it's like kind of the trio, and he's like shaving the different people and killing them, and they're sliding down. He's on the top level of that building of that set piece.
Which you'd have to imagine if like you slip on that off the top of that, like even that you could probably get hurt. Like
it
seems like it's a more dangerous and like somewhat choreographed set, I think, because it's like there's number one, there's the trap door, there's the top of it, it's rotating the entire time, and you have to sing not just like as in a musical, but like operatically while climbing this three-part set. It's like kind of an incredible feat.
I'm impressed by the baking and singing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
I
yeah,
always
right.
am too, like, because she has to like hit the rolling pin like on specific beats. It's like
boom,
it's a
boom,
very
breath control.
stylized, very choreographed. I'm like, that's a lot of hours of rehearsal to
Yeah.
get all of that together.
And
Just-
people
just
sliding
imagine-
through floors. Damn.
And imagine Angela Lansbury's like chucking pieces of pie at the conductor during the performance too. Like just
It's like
nuts.
whip it up, let it pie.
By the way,
Yeah.
who did you play in your production?
Oh, I was just in the ensemble. I was in the chorus.
Okay.
So
One of
yeah,
my
all
dream
the
roles
more
was
more
Lucy.
hot pies and that opening scene. It's pretty incredible though when you're getting to just like 40 people just screaming it out, especially like and it wasn't in the movie, but like you can look up the YouTube of the prologue and epilogue, and it's just like the Sopranos are in the stratosphere. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the entire original like Broadway cast recording is on like Apple Music. And
what do you think I've been listening to all week?
yeah, so when they sing like the more pies, like you can hear the various levels sonically of everybody's voices on like different levels, and it is incredibly creepy.
Do you all have favorite songs from the soundtrack? If you had to pick one.
I do like. I always have a soft spot for the Joanna. Well, it's supposed to be originally the quartet, but with Johnny Depp, and but also like the obviously when Sweetie and Judge Turpin are together for the first time, and it sounds like he's about to I always like Pretty Women. That I think I'm pretty sure Pretty Women was the first song I ever heard from Sweeney Todd when I had Sirius Radio way back in the day, and that just as an 11-year-old or 10-year-old that really intrigued me, and that started to develop my love for musical theater.
Yeah, I like the quartet, and it was just kind of funny like with Sondheim. Like my favorite song from West Side Story is the quintet when they're all singing at the same. Like I really like when Sondheim does that.
Did he write the music for that or just the lyrics for that?
He did the lyrics for West Side Story, and Bernstein did the music. Yeah,
That's why it
You
feels
can
like
tell
on
the
the
Bernstein.
waterfront. Yeah, like bam,
There's
bam.
like I really like when it's like when they converge like different stories at the same time, and they're all happening like multi-layered on top of each other. And I definitely like the more pies, that whole part of it, because it's just like I really like when Sweeney Todd comes down and he's like obsessing over like, all right, I'm gonna hit it 3 times. He's like 3 times, and then she's like, yeah, I get it. Just like go back up there, and then she has to run back around, and then everyone's asking for pies, and then she has to like kick the beggar woman out, get Toby to like
Toby, throw the old woman out.
It's just
like,
it's so impressive when like even more so than like hearing the song, like it's so impressive to like think how much she actually has to do during that entire number, right? Like she has to rush over here, rush over there, rush, to throw the woman out. Then she has to give people pies. Then she has to go upstairs and like tell Sweeney Todd to like, knock it off. Like, I get it. I understand. You're going to knock 3 times. Fine, whatever. And then she has to run back down. And it's like, like Angela Lansbury really, and I have a clip of her talking about, like accepting the role, but like she really took this and like ran with it.
Yeah. Didn't she win a Tony? Didn't she win a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical for this?
Yeah, I think this won Best Musical when it was premiered. Which is funny that like everybody in London was like, "Oh, we're tired of this." Like it didn't do well in the West End, but like it did when there was like a revival. But like the Broadway version of it won the Tony that year.
Yeah, well, Chicago wasn't originally a hit until its revival on Broadway. Les Mis wasn't a hit in London, but it became a hit on Broadway in New York. Surprisingly,
maybe they just don't like when like I don't know, like stories get retold by like Americans adapting plays.
The fucking Yankees are screwing up my musicals. What are they doing?
Well, I was standing in my kitchen one day in Ireland, and suddenly we had a crank telephone. In those days, lady in the post office put the calls through, and the phone cranked, and it was a telegram from Arthur Lawrence and Stephen Sondheim. And it was saying, would you be interested in playing the part of Nellie Lovett in a musical version of the Demon Barber of Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And well, I looked at Peter, and when I read the wire, I said, "Oh, that's interesting. It's a very interesting idea," because as children, we had both been brought up with this kind of legendary bogeyman who was Sweeney Todd, who slit people's throats and made meat pies out of them. So I thought, well, it's certainly something to consider, and they're very enthusiastic, these two, and obviously they're brilliant. They must have something up their sleeve for this show. So, but on the other hand, you know, the old star said, "Hey, wait a minute, this is called Sweeney Todd. How does Mrs. Lovett fit in? You know, it's not called Nellie Lovett, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. It's Sweeney Todd." So I thought, I hope, you know, is this a good part? So anyway, when I got on the phone to them and we started talking about, you know, how it was going to be, I realized that it was going to be an extraordinary production, that I must be involved, because Hal Prince, the great director, was directing it. And, you know, here you had this triumvirate of talent on board. So I thought this is probably a terrific thing to do. So I said yes. I always said she was a very resourceful woman. She didn't let anything go to waste. I mean, after all, the meat pies were her idea. No, it wasn't his. She was just being awfully clever and using available material. So, you know, but she was a marvelous character. And the more I got into it, the more I realized this was an opportunity to go back to my roots, you know, and to do a character that I really would relish getting my teeth into.
Oh, R.I.P.
Yeah, but she lived a long and prosperous life.
Yeah, I highly recommend if anybody really wants to dig into her life. Our past guest, Matt Baum, did an amazing video about her life. That's absolutely worth checking out, and goes into detail about Sweeney Todd. Tells all the stories that I've been telling here. I've stolen from him. You know, but you know, fascinating one, because at that time when she was living in Ireland, she moved out to Ireland because her son had a major drug problem, and her daughter got involved with Charles Manson's. Yeah, and she like had to rescue her before Manson went on the killing spree, and they went out to Ireland so everybody could like detox.
Yeah. Yep.
Like. Yeah, so if you want more stories like that, check out Matt Baum's channel. Has you know, Hollywood's Glad Girl, I think is the name of the video, which was based on like an insult that the studios used to call Angela Lansbury, and yeah, it's you know, but then played it around with the whole Glad, you know, gay and lesbian alliance, or whatever that is. I forget what Glad stands for. Nobody's helping me out. Where's the cricket?
Someone in the chat, save us.
I think it's definitely the gay and lesbian. Wait, hold on.
see, I have up on my screen Vecna, the dude who played the sailor,
Jamie Campbell Bower. Oh, yeah, he's a wonderful musician.
Spoiler alert.
Which means we're not going to get
gay and lesbian alliance. Gay and lesbian alliance against defamation. I would not have guessed that. I don't think
I would have thought the D was for defense in some sort of way. We're not great.
Yeah.
Damn us for not knowing acronyms.
But yeah, so anyways, that's the video. Go look it up. And let's talk Vecna.
Yes.
No, I'm actually really disappointed that we're not going to, you know, we have all these great needle drops on Stranger Things. We're not going to get a musical number from Vecna, are we?
No.
We got that season left. Maybe we will.
It's so weird seeing Jamie Campbell Bower's filmography, because I was like, oh, this kid's gonna go places probably, and then you don't hear anything from him, and then he's in the Twilight movies, and then we're like, we don't hear from him again because he's probably doing music. But then like it's almost as if Stranger Things is his big break.
Yeah, he was on Thomas and Friends. Let's not erase that.
Yes.
Let us not forget.
But we never hear the actress that played Joanna. I don't think she did anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked her voice in this. Like oftentimes, and I think this is sort of the change from like a stage musical or opera production versus like it's, you know, recorded in the studio and then they're singing to themselves. I think that It actually, Greenfinch and Linnet Bird sounded great. I thought she sounded great on it. A lot of times, like, it just has a timbre that's not easy to listen to in like more opera productions.
Yeah.
It
I don't know.
has to be so, it has to
Yeah.
be so high, right? Like the way that it sang.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I definitely, if somebody has a voice at that pitch that like is grating or something, you know what I mean? Like I definitely, that's one of the few things that like drive me crazy with something like that, right? Like because there are people that will have a voice like that is that high, and then just something about it like is off.
Just belt it out. But yeah, what I liked about, you know, the Greenfinch and Linnet Birds, when it came to filming it, the angle of the camera suggested, you know, she is a bird trapped in a cage. You know, she's trapped at Judge Turpin's house. Like the angle in her singing to a bird, she's singing about herself, you know, and again, like I've watched this movie a billion times and watched every like single like movie or like not like but like documentary or film video essay about this, and there's so many different things like the camera angle that they use where Beetle takes Lucy to the party. They use the same for when Anthony gets, you know, around the corner and discovers Joanna. They use the same exact like camera
There's
angle.
a lot of graphic match in those camera angles.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of matching to Broadway posters too. So they were hitting a lot of, like you guys said, still stagey kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think
it's funny.
Yeah, I think Johnny Depp actually won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy for this. This wasn't going to be an Oscar-worthy movie, I believe. But you know how Golden Globes are.
Well, I mean, Oscars. How often do they really give a musical?
That's a good question.
Anyway?
That is
Very
a really
few.
good question.
Very few. And
La La
there's-
Land, whenever Black people are nominated.
Yeah, pretty much. And very few people have gotten to do the stage show and then reprise the role in the film. But a few people, I think Yul Brynner won a Tony and an Oscar. I think with Jersey Boys, that Clint Eastwood completely destroyed Jersey Boys, so that still makes me mad because I know John Lo Young so well. But you know, there was no way they were gonna get, you know, Len Carey. They wanted, you know, that Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, you know, collaboration.
So there's only been 10, at least with Best Picture. There's only been 10 musicals that have won.
Way back in the day, though.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, and Joel Grey, I think, was the other one who won like the Oscar and the Tony.
And I think Rex Harrison did too.
Maybe
My Fair Lady won Best Musical or Best Picture. Sound of Music won. West Side Story. Chicago won. Huh.
Yeah.
Chicago started the movie musical revival of the 2000s.
No, I knew that. I just didn't remember that it won Best Picture. We probably talked about it. I still don't remember. An American in Paris. Gigi. The great Ziegfeld. Oliver. Going My Way. I've never even heard of that one. And the Broadway Melody.
Yeah. That's when musicals were all the rage, and then the 60s happened, and they weren't going for like Hello Dolly. They wanted Cabaret and Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, musicals are expensive. Let's also put that out there.
Yes.
Like, it's to your point where you're like, we start to see it. Does like we go more independent, going Miramax and Greenlight. And shit's just fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I think in the 60s, right? Like at least the first half of it, like Sound of Music, West Side Story, like I mean, they won. Like,
but the 60s were a time of change, and things were happening even regarding the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, remember Paint Your Wagon?
God. That was so bad.
Did you ever see The Simpsons where they rented it?
Oh my God.
Oh God.
No. Homer's like, oh, we have Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood, the two baddest cowboys.
But yeah, I think that not enough musicals have won Best Picture
recently, at least.
You know, it does seem like, I mean, how many like big musicals have come out as movies? Even like it feels like they've really like cut down.
They redo a West Side Story, In the Heights, but In the Heights was only on Max.
They like remaking things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think In the Heights is one of the best ones. I think the difficulty with movie musicals is like oftentimes they're like stage musicals first, right? And so it's like that the acting is different. Like it's much more presentational a lot of times, and that doesn't always translate well to film because like
Yeah.
it's just a different style of acting. And then you've got to find like actors who can do film acting who can also sing and sing well enough to like make it work. I think that Sweeney Todd was a good combination of things because they didn't really go with like a musical theater or operatic style of singing, but it still worked. They still sold the music, they sold the story, like it all worked together pretty well, and that's a hard combination to get, I think, just because
Phantom of the Opera did it all wrong.
In my
because
mind,
you
it
have to
does-
have the suspension of belief, like when you go from speaking to singing, and it just
in my mind, it almost makes sense to pick someone who might have been on a rocker or in a band because, like Meatloaf, who is in Rocky Horror Picture Show, this running around and then still being large is definitely going to be helpful in a production like this. But you're so right. When you switch it to film, it becomes so much closer that the facing, everything that you're doing has to change, and that doesn't always translate when you pick exactly the same actor who did it in the production on stage. So
That's why Chicago wowed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is they had Anthony Stewart Head right there who would do shortly after this Repo the Genetic Opera. I bring it up again. But he was the understudy to Tim Curry for Rocky Horror. So when Tim Curry left to make the film, he took over on the stage play. He was backup singer to his brother Maury Head on the hit song Night in Bangkok. And there was the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode where he sang all the music, and like the man's an accomplished singer, and like they get him for the film and he just has like one line.
And
I'm just like,
I was like, it's Giles.
Tim, come on. And if you watch Repo the Genetic Opera, he nails it. Like he kills it. Like carries the whole thing. Like on his back.
I was surprised there were not cameos of like imagine you see Angela Lansbury just walking mind her own business, or seeing Len carry you as like a victim, like someone
the victims could have easily been cameos.
George Hearn, like so many other Sweeneys in the past. That would have been pretty cool.
Sweeney to mix it up a little.
It seems like Tim Burton kind of kept this within the family a little bit, like at least the Harry Potter family.
All the Harry Potter characters getting up to some weird stuff.
So we definitely know that the Harry Potter film was not filming at the same time because all these actors needed to be available. So it was done on the off season.
But it's also good to know what happened to Alan Rickman in that time period because I had no clue. I wasn't watching the Harry Potter movies. I went down a very strange path of not liking J.K. Rowling in the 90s and early 2000s.
And you were ahead of us.
Believe me, like I got people would yell at me like, why not? I'm like, you can like it. I don't make me like it.
I don't have to yuck your yum. It's just not for me.
The one error in this movie is, and it's not the chair, whatever, but it's the fact that Helena Bonham Carter was pregnant. And so this film was shot out of order. So there are times where her breasts look a little bit bigger. She looks a little bit more chunkier and chubbier. And I'm like,
I just assumed it was all the meat pies.
That's what he said. That's exactly what I was thinking.
She was pregnant. So
all news to me.
Everyone's like, she looks thinner here and she looks bigger there. I'm like, she was pregnant. I'm like, they couldn't film it in order. I'm like, very few movies are filmed in order, especially when it comes to movie musicals. You really have to figure out what are we gonna do today? What are, how we're gonna do this today? It's not like, oh, we're just gonna film it song by song.
Yeah, also when people are available.
Yeah. And that also kind of affects the way that you do it as a production, because when you're doing a whole play all the way through,
you keep going.
You kind of get off of that energy, and it builds to those larger end pieces. So to have to we're just doing this piece today, it is hard to bring that, I would assume.
Yeah, that's the difficult. I feel like that's something, and I discussed this with John Lloyd Young for Jersey Boys. He's like, when you're doing 8 shows a week, you're singing 27 songs in high falsetto. But when he was doing the movie, they sung it live, which was not a good idea in my opinion. But he's like, I'm so used to, doing numbers and doing this and doing that. And so when you're so used to that, we had to have people remind us, like Vincent Piazza, who played Tom DeVito, he was like the only non-stage actor. So he was like, kind of teaching the guys like, okay, we're going to do like 1 or 2 musical numbers today. We're going to film this scene next week. Like it's so it's hard to get in that zone, which is why a lot of the times they cast actors who don't have much theater experience, because they will know how to film, a movie regardless.
You can kind of teach them to sing, I suppose.
So this is speaking of that.
Yeah.
This is from behind the scenes where they're helping Helena Bonham Carter, which I had to redub her name because I have a family friend whose name is like Botham, like that's their last name is like Botham, and so I kept saying Helena Botham Carter.
Have another go.
By the sea is really tricky because there's no space to breathe at all.
2, 3.
By the sea, Mr. Todd, that's a life I
I think Angela Lansbury lost her voice routinely at the end of the show. I was really comforted to read something that Angela had said, that she actually confronted Sondheim and said, well, where do I breathe? And he said, well, I didn't write anywhere you breathe, you just don't.
Because she's got so many of the tough songs and she's having to find her character in the recording studio in a way, that's been a challenge because she's never really known, well, where am I going to be? A and B cameras. And action. For example, if we take the worst pies in London, how am I going to know that I've got to sing this song, hit a rolling pin on the thing, make a pie? How am I ever going to know that I've got enough time to sing that, walk across to the pie shop and talk to Sweeney? That's been the hard one for her because when you record the orchestra, we have to make those decisions without seeing the film. So Helena would always be there and she'd be whispering in my ear at the recording studio, can we just try one a bit slower? Can we try one a bit faster? Because she was trying to, routine her scene out in her head. Action.
We hadn't actually done any acting together, me and Johnny, so I didn't really know. So sometimes you did come across, but you thought like, oh, I thought you were going to look at me at that. That was what I'd imagined in my booth. Of course, when you're acting on your own in a booth, your other actor is always going to do what you want. And then when they're on set, they got different ideas.
It's a little vibe. I think we are. Sorry, baby. Sorry. I'll do it less, but it's got to stick.
It's been really interesting working with Tim on doing this musical. First of all, it's been because I know privately, because I live with him, that he hates musicals. So it's kind of fantastic that he's doing one. This is my territory because he thinks that Billy, our son's going to be gay because he listens to Judy Garland, and I've just brought him up on musicals.
It's very interesting adapting a stage piece to a film because there's lots of things that I didn't know to begin with that I sort of found out as we went along. For instance, there's a lot of music and it's maybe 70% people singing, but we tried to avoid that kind of a lot of dialogue and then people bursting into song, and so to sort of deal with that, we cut out a lot of choruses, we cut out a lot of secondary people singing things, and let the main characters sort of project their feelings through the music. It's really coming from an internal place for them.
Although I'm an extrovert, he's asked me to bring everything back, not use my hands, real practical things. Hardly ever use my hands, which I find quite hard as an East End extrovert, to not use my hands. He said, no, looks theatrical. I'll use my eyebrows too, which tend to be hyperactive anyway. He said, because you're singing and you're already in a big environment, you're singing, there's a full orchestra, you look strange because we've got rather dramatic makeup. You've got to counteract that with a very restrained performance.
I know By the Sea is very difficult to sing, but I think the hardest Sondheim song to sing is Getting Married Today from Company, because you got to sing as fast as possible because you're supposed to be hyperventilating and not find time to breathe while singing that song. Like, it's Tim would know.
Yep, exactly. That's like just a fun challenge to give yourself to do.
I can do it.
Like to do the patter. It's very fast and it's a lot, and to try to get sort of the acting into it. But yeah.
Yeah. But that clip definitely explained, like, what you have to change from stage to film for sure.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, you have to make the vocal and acting choices sort of alone in the studio before you get to know what the staging is. That's definitely a challenge. But also, I like that she kind of described that it's like, that a lot of that was the directorial choices more than her choices for the character, because I did find her to be a lot more subdued than like Angela Lansbury is like a lot more over the top. And again, like stage versus movie, you can't get away with the same level. It would have come across too cartoonish probably, but like for stage, it's fun.
Yeah, if you get the I'm gonna mention Clint Eastwood. He was not a good choice to do Jersey Boys because he made the cast completely subdued. Like there was no really good like acting in it. And like with Sweeney Todd, that Tim Burton did it right. Like they all, and even like, and Sondheim was impressed. Like he really actually liked this adaptation because he's like, that's actually really how like phenomenal.
Sondheim said this is one of his favorite interpretations into film of his work, which is impressive. And it's also impressive because when you think of Tim Burton, you think of a clear visual style. But yes, as also a director, he is handling the performances of the actors. He's not just letting them go loose, figure out whatever the hell they want to do.
It's probably his favorite musical of all time. So he's like, this is my favorite musical of all time. I've seen it a billion times. I need to treat it with respect and dignity and make sure that it lives up to Stephen Sondheim and even Harold Prince's standards, since he's like he was a phenomenal stage director as well.
One interesting thing, Harold Prince and Sondheim actually disagreed on what the play was about in the first place.
Of course.
Like how Prince thought that it was a story about how like Victorian era factory work, right? Like the class distinctions actually drain the life out of people and turn them into like these inhuman monsters. And that's why every character is like so over the top evil and vindictive. It's like this system, like the systemic story about how this level of industrialization turns everybody involved in it and everybody involved in like these factories, and because all these characters are getting pulled out of like workhouses, you know what I mean? Like like especially like Toby, like they pull him out of the workhouse,
just
and he's like
grinds you up.
How that drains the humanity out of you. And Sondheim's like, no, I just think it's about revenge, man. Like
Harold Prince was one of those guys who's always like, this is about this, like this show is about, even when he was he directed Phantom of the Opera for Andrew Lloyd Webber, and he's like, this is a love, I loved it. This is like a love story. There's passion, there's this. And Andrew Lloyd Webber was like, yes, even though I wrote it for my wife, but this is good. But it is interesting because Harold Prince is probably the greatest stage director of all time. R.I.P. to a legend.
He's like Andy. He's like Andy with art,
Yes.
And he's like so perfect at art, but then you're like, oh, what's this about? And he gives you like some story that you've never even like considered for that. You're like, all right, I guess there's an alligator in there now.
Snap correction.
Well, there's an alligator in all of us.
Yes. There's a razor in all of us too.
I rewatched Edward Scissorhands and like before doing this, and I mean Sweeney Todd again, and I like completely forgot that there's a scene where in Edward Scissorhands he uses the scissors to cut everybody's hair. And it feels like there's like a good barber and like a bad barber in the Tim Burton universe. Like Edward Scissorhands is like the monster that's misunderstood, that's good and like pure and everything, and then there's just like Sweeney Todd being like, I'm gonna kill you with this razor. Because you expect that Edward Scissorhands is gonna accidentally like snip somebody's hair too short and like cut them or something throughout that
story
whole
of my
scene.
life. Notice in Joanna, there's one guy he doesn't kill because his wife and daughter are in there with him. So he's like, can't do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that and that's in the stage play as well, where it's like the family's in there, so it's like every once in a while there's one that he is like, oh, I'm just gonna actually give them a shave and a haircut and let them live and move on with their lives, you know.
Yeah. Well, it seems like in the play there's like an understanding, like they're only doing this to the people that nobody's gonna miss, right? Like
yeah.
Like
these are guys everybody they'll notice too. Like some people have to get a shave, otherwise they shut you down real quick.
Which I mean, you know, in a Victorian era London, like it makes a lot of sense with, you know, there's a lot of transient people just coming to do factory work, or like sailors. Like, I mean, Antony would have been a perfect person for him to kill if that wasn't like his friend. You know what I mean? Like,
friend.
Yeah, like, well, his son-in-law.
It did remind me of Devil in the White City and that whole kind of, accessibility of murder victims due to like an ever-growing city, and it's killing people no one cares about.
Or like only the people that nobody cares about are people that like don't have family members or friends that are like going to come snooping around. It's kind of like
people come snooping around looking for them.
And this is like an obscure reference, but like thoroughly modern Millie. Oh, sad to be all alone in the world.
Yes.
I mean, also that's the whole point of like the Jack the Ripper thing, right? Like he only goes after, you know, prostitutes on the street that nobody's going to necessarily miss. And like as the legends about Jack the Ripper kind of got bigger and bigger, like he's like almost like this nobleman or like this some kind of like, you know, official.
He's a doctor for the royal family who's trying to hide the fact that the prince got syphilis from prostitutes on the streets. And
allegedly.
Honestly, today Jack the Ripper would be a hero to like Andrew Tate types.
To the alt-right.
Yeah.
They're like, Jack the Ripper did nothing
wrong. Kind of an interesting question, because while I was watching this movie, I thought like, well, you know, it's a penny dreadful. Of course, it's going to be set in Victorian times. That's the original time frame of the musical. Could you modernize this? Would it change it that much? And then also, I thought about that movie. I was on your podcast for Delicatessen, and how like maybe there's a place where that as a modern version of Sweeney Todd set in like a French futuristic world.
Is it the same place?
Is it almost the same place? It feels Victorian.
Yeah, no, that movie did feel somewhat Victorian, but I mean, I don't know. I think that there's cities in like you know, you look at like urban sprawl in somewhere like China or like India or like places where it really is you know, urban sprawl to that level, and maybe there's less oversight over, you know, the poorest people versus the richest people. I think that you could remake something where it's like, I mean, there still are like a lot of homeless people in the United States that you could make something like this and have him only like, you know, killing like homeless people, but it's hard to imagine, because we just have so much like surveillance tech. I feel like it's hard to get away. Hard to get away with murder these days.
Okay, hear me out. San Francisco, 1992.
Yeah. Well,
you're right. I do wonder if it was more like New Delhi or Bangkok or something that like was, you know, a huge city and like huge wealth disparity situation.
Yeah.
And kind of caste system again, where it's like they're just sort of ground down by the system.
Bong Joon-ho's Sweeney Todd. Yes, I'm for it.
I mean, the most modern interpretation of Sweeney Todd probably has to be the 2006 revival, where they all had to play their own instruments, because the costumes were not Victorian at all. Like, yeah, Sweeney Todd wearing like a leather jacket, Miss Love was wearing like a short white dress. I'm pretty sure you could find the Tony performance on, because when I saw it, I was like, this is Sweeney Todd. This is so like modern, and why are they playing their own instruments?
Yeah.
And when I think of Sondheim, I think of like orchestrational, like, you know, big bombastic orchestra. So
I think Madonna and Dick Tracy. I'm sorry, that's just me.
It was very minimalistic. Yeah.
It
was like a stripped down version where it's
During
like
the intro,
just the basics of the music.
During the intro, whenever we saw the guy slide down the slide, was that from that version of Sweeney Todd?
I think it's probably just a test.
I think that was from the original, the one where he slid down and was like crouching inside the little building. That was, I think, the original set.
Yeah. Okay.
The one that they tested in the intro, you mean?
Yeah.
That's like the Atlanta theater. I think that is the original set, but that was a test from like the Atlanta theater department. or opera. I mean opera, whatever. Like the
Yeah.
For a more recent version of Sweeney Todd, that Cricket's back.
I was gonna say, Jiminy Cricket's back.
So, Cricket, what did you think of the movie?
And then wasn't there, sorry, this is sort of like a random story, but I want to say a few years back, time being what it is, it was probably like 7 or 8 years ago, but there was like a high school production where they like did not cover the prop knife well enough, and like high school kids were like, yeah.
Yep.
That's wild.
People were like, we can't do Sweeney Todd. I'm like, first of all, I don't know why any high school production would want to do Sweeney Todd considering all the material, but like, I'm like, it's like having a middle school production of Hair. Like, what? No. It's naked at the end. What the heck?
Yeah.
I've definitely been in some low budget horror films where we've had to be like, look, you can't just dull a knife down enough. Get a prop knife.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Britney Spears. A prop shop was about to close down, a mom and pop prop shop, but she was dancing with those prop knives, and now they're no longer going to go out of business.
Yeah,
the props she gave those props, prop them up.
See, there are people that like the assumption was that it was like real knives, and Britney Spears is just like
no,
gone crazy.
Leave Britney alone.
It was funny that video went viral though. Like the same week we're doing Sweeney Todd.
I know.
So it's like the next Britney Spears video is just.
I completely missed this. I have no clue what y'all are talking about.
There's a video that went viral of Britney Spears dancing with these knives, and I guess they were prop knives. And she like saved a place that was going out of business, a prop shop. But people just assumed like she had her knives and she was dancing with them, and so it went like viral with people being like, Britney Spears has gone crazy
again.
And,
yeah,
I guess.
Leave her alone.
Yeah,
she helped save a business. She is a comrade. Okay,
that makes way more sense than her just dancing with knives around.
Knives are fun to dance with. You got to have a reason now. Jesus,
women aren't allowed to have fun.
God, get a hobby.
Not on social media anymore. People get real.
She can do whatever she wants now. Okay.
Yeah.
People get real mad whenever they see women having fun on social media.
Yeah, like I'm gonna film this.
Yeah.
I'm
Brittany, come on the show. Bring your knives.
I'm still in my awkward knife phase, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't your husband like teach fencing too? So like that doesn't help.
The sword's actively behind me right now. Yeah, no, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, sir.
But is it Letterboxd one-liners time?
I think it might be Letterboxd one-liners time, which would be the time in which Conan reminds us that Letterboxd is the bastion of democracy.
No, he says it's a place for film lovers to talk with and to each other about the films they love, the films they don't love.
You know what? Hey, why not instead of talking over KT, let KT make it her own.
No, he's got it. He's got
the
it.
films they love, the films they don't love, the films that they got a haircut while watching. That's presented in the one-liner format, you know.
And it levels the playing ground because anybody can leave a review. Even you could sign up for Letterboxd right now at the end of this bit.
I wish they were paying us to say that. But he also says no Siskel's, no Eberts, and these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street.
This is definitely Armie Hammer's favorite musical.
Oh, shit!
One could say he found it delicious.
He's the and I was thinking about this while watching it, like. The one guy who finds out that it was meat pies in the end after all the bodies get found, and he's just like, all right, like sure, it's human meat. It's Armie Hammer. He's the last guy, and he's like, that's what I assumed. But
did you hear? Oh, it was like in the early aughts they did a thing called Hoo-Foo, and it was a human flavored tofu that anthropology students had made by talking to cultures in South America that purported to be cannibalistic, and they sold it, and it didn't do well, and it's no longer for sale.
I remember that, but I didn't know what happened at the end of the story.
Johnny Depp's sexy hair cinematic universe is so fire.
that gray white streak though.
Do you know? Ironically, when they shipped this movie out to movie theaters, they had to ship it under a different name, a secret name, and the secret name was Skunk.
Yep.
Presumably because of his fantastic hair.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even the most Pepe Le Pew like character in this movie.
Yeah.
That would be Judge Turpin.
Yes.
Most definitely. God forbid men have hobbies.
Yeah, right.
You know? Like, if he had just picked up collecting stamps, maybe we wouldn't have wound up like this.
You know, women can play with
These are
knives.
my stamps.
My hand is complete, and at the end, it's just a Beanie Baby.
Yes.
My mail is complete again.
Time to mail it out.
Snape, Pettigrew, Bellatrix, and Grindelwald get up to some weird shit.
They really did just like cast Helena Bonham Carter's like castmates from Harry Potter movies.
Yeah. The one of the set was fun.
It would be funny though if they did a version of this where like they did the same thing as the Fantastic Beasts thing, where they just replaced Johnny Depp with Mads Mikkelsen or whatever, and they had like him running this. I don't know if he can sing, but
Mads.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Well, he can dance, so we know that.
Excellent Italian representation.
Hey.
They let a British guy, like a British Israeli guy, play a Italian guy. That's not good British representation. Let an Italian guy play the fake Italian guy.
You know, it could have been so much more upsetting, and yet it was fine.
And he even had the Italian flag as the barber, put around the guy's neck.
Mm-hmm.
He did. Of course, he's like, "Yo, I shaved the Pope." That's the one other Italian guy that he knows.
Alan Rickman and Johnny Depp are so horrible and hot in this at the same time. So, like, I get it.
Same.
Same, though. Same. It's horrible. You're like, God.
Oh, my God. This is written by Kristina.
The one part that almost
Yeah.
made me feel bad for the fact that they're both, like, sociopathic demons in this. Like, the one thing that kind of made me feel bad is when he's like, it's so rare that a man finds a kindred spirit in his life or whatever when he's in the barber chair at the end. I was like, oh, in a different world, they'd just be friends. Like,
with certain taste in women, at least.
Could have been besties.
Oh yeah, and then I forgot about, like, I don't think it was in this show, but like but in the movie, the whole scene of like him sentencing this child to death by hanging. I was like, oh my gosh, all right.
He's like, I love what they're talking. He's like, did he do it? And he's like, he must have done something to deserve that, like getting hung. And fucking Judge Turber's like, what man hasn't? And it's like, he and Sweeney Todd have the same ethos when you think about it, right? Sweeney Todd's like, like you deserve to have a short life if you're wicked, and if you're not, you still deserve to die. That's pretty much what Judge Turpin said. At the same time, they are spiritually like a similar character.
It's almost like a Victorian version of Heat, is what you're saying.
Well, it's class that separates them more than attitude.
Yeah.
Popping pussies into pies was a line that was hard to hear. I put on the closed captioning because the high pitch of the younger actress, I couldn't. It was muddy, so I got to see that
pussies into pies
come across the bottom of my screen.
Sondheim.
And she continues like dunking on that. At least in the stage play, she continues dunking on the popping pussies into pies lady. Like later on, she's like,
Mrs. Money.
Broke. Yeah. Broke hoe, go put some more pussies in those pies.
Also, a hard P noise to hit in a song without, spitting too hard.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. I still ship Sweeney and Mrs. Lovett. They're like Sid and Nancy, but more fucked up.
True.
Yeah.
And it has the same ending.
Yeah, it's pretty apt.
True.
Well, actually, no, he doesn't cook her in the movie. He just stabs her. But, go on.
Sid Vicious also doesn't get taken out by some little kid. That would be...
The kid is a metaphor for drugs.
Yeah, he's
right.
actually heroin.
Anthony coming back with the carriage to find a bloody slaughter. I was only gone for 15 minutes. Shit got escalated so quick.
I do love though that like he locks the guy that runs the mental asylum. This definitely has the big vibes of like he also is sexually abusing every girl in there. You know what I mean? Like they're all like,
I'll
but,
leave
like
you
I
to
love that
your
he locks the guy in there with him. And the last shot you see is all the girls going like they're like getting ready to fucking just devour him, pretty much like ripping limb from limb.
Like they just realized that they outnumber him that badly.
Good for her.
Legally Blonde 4.
Why couldn't they just be happy on a beach somewhere? Damn.
I know. That really stood out. I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely a Tim Burton movie.
All the stripes.
That's the
Yeah,
swimming.
What was the like this is for Tim. Like what was the stage like the background on the stage play when there's the by the sea number? Like because in this that's the one time you really get like the full saturation of it.
Yeah, in the stage play, they're still just in like Mrs. Lovett's house. It's not, they don't actually go anywhere. This is all in her imagination. So
yeah,
she's really painting the picture to the best of her ability by the music of it.
And she's sure good at painting that picture. She really, he doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like
He still has revenge on the mind. He's not. Yeah,
and he's
like, not gonna.
And all he can remember about his wife is that she had yellow hair. He doesn't even recognize her. The wife is in the room. He doesn't recognize her because you know what I mean. He has face blindness or whatever. And
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
They did a good job of like obscuring her as much as possible, and that's kind of how they have to do it, like in this stage play. But it's harder on film because they never showed her face all that up close, other than like with a lot of shadow. And I thought they did a good job of like hiding her identity until like towards the very end when he finally got to see her face.
And I think that it's that's another reason I guess why they didn't do a more complicated like you know giving her more of a role in this, because they wanted to surprise you at the end, which I think is harder if you're doing it as a movie than it is as a stage play. It's like you don't know who the fuck, you know what I mean? Like if some lady's just singing like like you don't know that's you just think that's another character.
Yeah,
but in this you see her at the beginning.
Yeah, it does make it a little more challenging because it does feel like him killing her is like a little out of left field. Whereas like if she is more of that character of like, you know, kind of getting into people's faces and like trying to sell herself and being like really irritating and really getting, you know, then it's kind of like he's just trying to get rid of her as a nuisance. Where it seems a little less motivated if she's not as present. It's like, oh, you just killed this bigger person.
But also,
like,
too, the judge was coming up, so he had to think of something quick to get rid of her. So he's like, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna. As someone who knew the stage show, I was like, oh, you're gonna regret that. My friend's like, what do you mean? I'm like, nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
The stage show also, she's the one that's in front of the house when Anthony sees Joanna, right? Like he's the one that's like. She introduces that scene. She's on the street. She's creeping around. There's like that whole number that they cut with Beetle Bamford just showing up, like singing like out of like the songbook or whatever. Which, like that whole she's around for that whole thing too. She's looking for the Beetle. That's the one person that the Beetle can't. You know, the Beetle's trying to get rid of. He's like, get out of here, beggar woman. Like I know who you are. Like we only fucked one time. Get out of here. Like,
but also it is kind of interesting. She's kind of stealth, like in both versions, she's pretty stealth in that, like, how is she not, again, it seems like she's kind of being protected by the Beetle, and maybe they feel some sort of remorse. I don't know, but somehow she's not in prison, and somehow they didn't put her in Bedlam either.
Yeah.
I do agree with you though, Tim, by not really including her so that they could have her be a surprise at the end. It does feel like an abrupt kill, even though there's the time it makes sense. Like thematically, it does feel like, hey, and she's here and she's dead. And you're like,
But then everyone's like, I remember the entire theater gasped at that. I was like, I knew that, but okay.
I mean, she's just got a little bit of makeup on. And the others like, wake up.
Yeah, but it is kind of good that I in a weird way, I'm actually happy that Sweeney Todd gets killed in the end by Toby, because in a way he gets to be with his wife in hell, I'm assuming. Purgatory? I don't know.
But is the wife going to
Yeah.
hell? That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like the wife, what has she really done besides sell herself?
Yeah.
And be annoying the entire
Yeah.
time.
But also, you're right. I think that makes him susceptible to being killed. His guard is no longer up because he's already enacted his revenge, and then he found out that he lost the person that he actually was trying to get vengeance for. So he had nothing left. So like, why couldn't a child kill him at that point? He probably would have,
and
even if he had
Joanna's-
seen him, I think he would have just welcomed him in, you know?
It felt like
And he got-
suicide by Toby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got Omar'd, man. It's like the kid shows up and kills him at the end, just like Omar.
Yes.
in The Wire.
Because Mrs. Lovett, like, and a lot of people, like my friends who do theater didn't like Mrs. like Helena Bonham Carter's portrayal of Mrs. Lovett because they're like, she's supposed to be a hag and a little goofy. But I'm like, if they make it from a young man to a boy, there's that maternal feeling. And so of course he kills Sweeney because he killed his only mother figure in life.
Yes, I believe the whole previous song called "Nothing's Gonna Harm You"
while I'm around. And
like
she's
10
like,
minutes ago.
I mean, it's way more believable in some weird way if it's a child than if it's like a mentally challenged adult that's like, nothing's gonna harm you. It's like, what are you really capable of doing in this situation?
But that's so much more sinister that you would sing that to a mentally handicapped adult as if
True.
it were
Yeah.
a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a little bit of that makes it a little more PG, obviously.
Well,
Yeah.
the
But
kid from
also-
Stranger Things is in the revival, I think, playing Toby. So I guess they're realizing that we can have like a young man play him now, like a teenager, and I'm like, okay, we'll stick with that.
Yeah. But also bringing back one of your earlier points about like, okay, so we cut the tooth pulling scene, but we're okay putting your wife up in flames.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I mean,
'Cause
maybe
it's
Tim
like-
Burton has a dentist fear or something. He's like,
he must.
I
There
mean,
must
look
have
at
been
Charlie the Chocolate
something.
Factory.
Because you know how some people, it's like they can handle a lot of blood and guts, but the minute you bring out a needle, no.
I'm fine with that.
There,
the only part of this movie
and I think that's the same thing with like dentistry. People are like, nope, we'll go really far. We'll go with slitting throats. We'll go with setting people on fire. But you
not
bring
pulling
out
a
a
tooth.
tooth, no.
But it is the one part I found like truly disturbing watching this as like a teenager was when she gets thrown into the fire and like
Yeah.
fingers on her and you literally just watch her flame, like even knowing full well that it's like CGI fire, like you know what I mean, like
And it looked
Yeah.
good too, unlike most of the time whenever you see CG fire. So
Yeah.
like, shout outs
Yeah.
to the special effects artists for that, because that looked better
improved
than
a lot since Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
And those flame suits are so fun. Get the stunt
Yeah.
guys out on that. They're
Have
an
you ever
interesting
used a
thing to
flame
bring out.
suit?
No, a bunch of my friends have, and they're notoriously cold.
Oh yeah.
Because you're covered in the flammable item. Yeah, no, I'm all good with that kind of stunt stuff.
Yeah, but it was wild because like in the stage version, they make sure that the stove doesn't have a window, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was staged to where like the audience can't really see inside the door no matter what. So it's
Yeah.
like, from what I'm remembering, it's like it was on the side of the stage, so it's like that door could be opened. Someone could go in there, you close it, and then they could just exit the stage from the stove. But like, yeah, that was a little extra graphic, but it is like a creepy scene either way, because usually like in the stage version, they just stay in that oven and just like pound on the door screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
There aren't too many.
It kind of
like-
reminds me of at the end of Lord of the Rings, though, when Gollum jumps after the ring into the fire.
That's-
when he's like, ah!
There
Yeah.
aren't too many horror plays now that I think about it. Like, to have to ask yourself, like, how are we going to do blood on stage? How are we going to put someone in an oven on stage?
I think that there were way more like in the Victorian era. There were a lot more like horror
We need
plays.
to bring
like,
those
they would-
back.
Yeah. It's like the penny, not penny opera, but like there's like the penny theater show or whatever that you would go to, and you'd like give them like a little bit of money, and they'd like put on some like, I don't. People in London love that shit.
But one of the better sort of like shows that's set in the Victorian era that's like I think is hilarious, and it's actually kind of based in truth, is like, have you ever heard of The Room Next Door or The Vibrator Play?
No.
No.
It's literally because like at that time I think it was a situation where it was like, oh well, she needs to get off is what needs to happen. For her to not be experiencing mental illness. And so that was literally the first, if I'm remembering correctly, that's the first like electric device that was actually created, was a vibrator, because these old-timey Victorian doctors were getting carpal tunnel from
Now British
orgasms can prevent you from mental illness. You heard it here, folks.
Now British horror is just pronouns, and all the British people go, ah! They're on turf islands.
Although I have to admit, it feels like people say Joanna's name so much in this production.
Take a shot.
It's like they don't know her
died.
pronouns, and they're just trying to not say like he or she. They're like, just say Joanna. Just say it. Oh God.
Yes.
Joanna, hey, how's it going? Assuming not assuming anything.
You know Joanna? Joanna.
Yeah, I know her. I know Joanna.
Pretty women. I don't know.
Woman X.
But like it really like I don't know. Like I feel like British culture has like devolved. Like it's gone from like some like truly like terrifying like horror stuff to like British people kind of freaking out about trans people and cancel culture. Like that's their main. I feel like that's their main cultural output now.
Yeah,
it's just like get like a 70-year-old man complaining that wokeness has gone too far, which is ours too. But I don't think we ever really pretended it was anything else.
Yeah.
They also have some good cheeses. You want to get a Wensleydale? You have to go there.
And there's, I mean, they sure put beans in a lot of stuff.
Oh, remember my a birthday stream, Forrest, where Jean got into a fight with Ben about like British foods?
Yeah.
All I'm thinking is just like, Jean's like, you get really good Indian food over in England.
Yeah, technically they did invent the tikka masala is a British
Master
invention. So should we do final thoughts?
Oh, we should do plugs.
Yeah.
Oh, plugs first.
Nobody led me into plugs, so I'm just sitting here flailing.
Hey, Eddie, you want to plug some stuff?
Yeah, let's do that. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, please do those YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. And of course, the big ask is to watch the video to the end. That allows other movie fans to find our content. And you get to hear a great Conan Neutron song, which is the only Conan you get during the stream. It's beginning and end. That's it. That's all you're getting. You'll have to come back next week for another snippet of Conan. But if you're over on Twitch, we're there too. Throw us a sub. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it really does help us out. So thank you very much for considering to do that. Speaking of helping us out, we have a Patreon. Patreon.com. What is? Oh God. Sorry. Hey, hang on.
Patreon.com/movie night extra.
Siri just came on for some reason.
Patreon.com/movie night extra.
Sometimes that cuts off my microphone. Thank you.
By becoming a patron, fucking Siri.
Okay,
what the fuck?
Did that cut off my mic?
For only $2 or $3. No, your mic's fine.
Okay, mic's fine.
Last time that happened, like my mic cut off. I had to like reset everything. It was a nightmare. So I'm panicking a bit here. But anyways, yes, we have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/movie night extra. Subscribe over there. You get access to our after party, so you can go back and see how we terrorized poor Tim the last time he came on the show at our after party. So do that. If you're missing Conan, you can go back and find some.
I really thought that like Tim had like gotten kind of pissed off, or like I don't know, like that we had terrorized him, because as soon as the after party was over, like Tim got off, like, and it was after the thing with Ravana being like, we should burn down the Supreme Court, and I was like, yeah, maybe we scared this guy off.
Now, Conan's not here, but he is out on tour. So if you are actually wanting more Conan in your life, a couple things you can do. He just put out a new music video, which I worked on. So the visuals, that's me. I did all the digital backgrounds and stuff. It looks great. I'm super happy how it came out, but Conan directed it. It's for Cry Bullies. So go check that out. If you wanted to check out his podcast, Platonic Reversal, you can do that as well. Go back into the archives. There's some great episodes. I'm going to recommend to you to go check out episode 266, Billy Gold of Faith No More. Great interview there. So go check that out. I love Faith No More, probably my favorite metal band. So there you go.
By the way, it wasn't Conan that directed it. It was Mark Borchardt.
No, that's a different one.
Oh, really? Because he just shared this one.
Wait,
all right. Well, then he has other ones coming out with Mark Borchardt.
Yeah, he does have another one with Mark directing. This is the one Conan directed, and I worked on it too. So yeah, you can see the little Chiron.
Yep, right there.
In the background, the Neutron News Network.
I guess Ghetto Blaster magazine is where the they did the article about with his list of tour dates too.
Yes, which I was going to get to, but you can see it right there. If you can't read that, it's Tempe, Arizona, LA, San Francisco, Sacramento, Reno, Eugene, Portland, Bellingham, and Seattle. Which I know some people on screen. And by some people, I just mean one. It's near one of those places. So, if you can check it out, go say hi. Tell them I sent you. There you go. Also, Adult Prom's the new album that video is for. So, you can order that now. It will come in whenever he gets back, unless you get it digitally. Then you get it instantly. But that's how it works. Of course, go to his Patreon, $1 a month that supports his podcast. You get episodes early, so when he's back, boom, it's going to be there before everybody else gets it. So check that out. Kristina, you're back on Twitch.
Yeah, and then I'm cat sitting again. I'm gonna try to stream between, because for people living in bougie gated communities, they don't have internet or cell reception.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's weird. Makes no sense at all. But whatever.
They're trying to avoid that woman that's like, arms for a beautiful.
Oh, I lived in the Berkshires. Trust me on this.
It's probably purge related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want people posting your assassination coordinates.
Yeah, exactly. But I did a 15-hour subathon on Sunday, and my back is paying the price for it. I wore my Barbie cosplay, which was a lot of fun, and I gained 70 subscribers in 15 hours.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then my birthday's next Wednesday, so yay.
Happy birthday.
Happy almost birthday. We're also going to be on Dan from the Internet show on Thursday.
Yeah. He's coming down for the party, and I think the letter hack Matt's coming down too.
Oh, nice.
He lives like an hour away from me, so I'm bullying him to come.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, make that happen.
Nice.
Yeah.
And of course, you have your Patreon as well, which helps out Kristina pay her bills, pay her internet.
Yes.
Gets her by when she has between pet sitting gigs.
Yeah, that's all I do now.
But yeah, definitely support her if you can. KT, you got some stuff going on too, right? You got the Starwell Foundation season 2.
Yep, season 2, episode 2 has also dropped, and I am in episode 2, both of my characters. So get on over there, listen to that. It's a really fun. They're kind of like 25-minute long, kind of like old school teleradio play. Again, the quick premise is that this is a world in which superheroes exist, and our main character works for a foundation that normally helps get sick children meetings with superheroes, except sick children are now wanting to meet supervillains, and our main character's job is to facilitate that. Some fun stuff.
Yes, that's where opinions may vary.
Opinions may vary, yep.
Yeah, that's where you can find it. And go there, subscribe. And of course, check out Girl in the Basement on YouTube.
Absolutely. Good Halloween movie if you're looking for a short movie to watch this month for our on theme kind of creepiness, more cannibalism. Get
Yeah.
on that.
30 minutes long, so it's not like you're wasting. You don't have to invest a lot of time into it.
It's a fun.
You're definitely not wasting time.
No, it's a fun, quick romp
Yes.
in a stress film. Enjoy.
In a basement.
In a basement.
In a basement.
It's an
Yeah.
allegory for anorexia. You're gonna be upset.
Which remember I invited you over to my basement to film the first time you ever came on. So
I know, man. That's why I came with another person.
yes. Well, he invited you. It was all his fault anyways.
He invited me because he's like, I have to go into some guy's basement. And I was like, well, me and basements. Let's do it.
And
He's like, I don't want to be guy in the basement,
No, but yeah, I mean, I knew Jared for a while, so that's cool. But Tim, you're doing some stuff with Knee Plus Jazz Orchestra. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Knee Plus Ultra Jazz Orchestra in Vancouver, Washington next week at the Providence Academy, 7 p.m. And then let me see, two weekends after that, the Friday, I don't remember which one it is. I guess it's like the 16th or somewhere in that.
I have it written down as the 6th in Vancouver and the 20th in Portland.
There we go. 20th in Portland at the Village Ballroom, also 7 p.m. And Mendelssohn's Bar on Mississippi in Portland, Oregon. There's like they do opera oki and musical theater karaoke. And so like next week, Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. I'll be singing a little set in there.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, check that out. And of course, you have any plays coming up that you're working on?
Nothing currently.
Yeah, because you just wrapped something, right? I'm trying to remember what it is, and I didn't write it down. So.
Oh yeah. In the summer, I finished Amélie the musical. So have you ever do a review of Amélie, the movie from early 2000s?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to jump back in and tell about like kind of the musical version with the movie.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
I didn't know that they did a musical version.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I only know because I'm friends with you on Facebook, and I saw that.
Oh, it's funny though. The same director that did Amélie did Delicatessen. Yeah. Which we talked about earlier in this.
Yeah.
Which is the movie
it's all coming together,
connected, folks. It's all connected.
Kind of like a weird version of French futuristic Sweeney Todd.
But yeah, and of course, if you need more Tim in your life, go check out his TED Talk, which is fantastic.
Which I have in the show notes.
Yes. Yeah, go right down there. Find the link. Watch it when we're done.
Thank you.
But
one more thing. I have a book that just came out this week. Well, I didn't write the book. I just did the cover. It's the follow-up to Michael Brooks' Against the Web. It's How to Cosmopolitan Socialism, a tribute to Michael Brooks by Matt McManus, and I did the cover for that. So order that now. Yeah, go for it.
All right, now
take it away, Forrest.
I said now. Do it now. But Tim, you have any final thoughts on this?
On the movie, I thought it was a great adaptation. I thought it was great singing. It was like it was really a great watch.
It's a very straightforward adaptation, I think. Like in some ways,
yeah.
If it wasn't you that we're having on that like knows the stage play, like I don't know how much there would even be to say about the movie itself. You know what I mean? It's a pretty straight. I mean, besides what they cut.
Yeah, and they made judicious cuts that they all made sense. Like you didn't lose any of the major plot points. You just like only a little bit of details and shading. So, yeah.
It's interesting that Sondheim's able to out grotesque Tim Burton though. Like Tim Burton's work is pretty family friendly. Like this is one of the few rated R movies I think I can think of that Tim Burton did. I mean Sleepy Hollow, I guess, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But Kristina?
Yeah, so I saw this in the theater and absolutely loved it. I was so excited when I heard Sweeney Todd was going to be adapted into a movie. This is how you adapt outside of Chicago, probably. This is how in modern movie musicals, it's how you adapt something from stage to screen. phenomenal casting, despite everyone being from Harry Potter. Great direction, phenomenal. Like the aesthetics of the movies, exactly what I was hoping for. This movie has aged very well, considering it's from a time almost like a timeless masterpiece that's kind of been interpreted in different ways on stage. I don't think it should be ever remade or redone. I know like they redid West Side Story, which made no sense to me, but I think the revival's still going on right now on Broadway, I believe. If you have the money, go see it, because it's I've heard so many good things about it. And again, this is my favorite movie musical adaptation of all time. If you are looking for something to watch that's musical but kind of gory, Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street is it.
Yeah, musical with blood.
Yeah.
Andy, final thoughts?
I know this came out like right between Reefer Madness the musical and which is a blast, by the way. They eat a baby in it. It's great. And and of course Repo the Genetic Opera, which Repo way more bloodier. There's like internal organs going everywhere. Paris Hilton's face falls off. It's fantastic. It's great. But this I skipped because how can it compare to eating a baby and Paris Hilton's face falling off? And to be honest with you, I didn't watch it until today. Which there you go. But I was also feeling kind of burnt out because this was also after Big Fish, I don't think Tim Burton movies just weren't speaking to me as they were coming out, and I felt like I've seen them all before. So I'm actually glad that I got to see this. I wanted, because I knew Kristina has been wanting to do this forever, and and this is actually a fantastic adaptation, and it does slot nicely between Reefer Madness and Repo the Genetic Opera. So there you go. Who knows?
It feels like one of the last good Tim Burton movies, right?
Then Dark Shadows happened and it went downhill from there.
Well, because I guess Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which fucking sucked, came out 2 years before this. But
it actually got a lot of good reviews because everyone was like, "Yeah, this collaboration is awesome. Yeah, this is closer to the book. This is great." And then it's kind of like in recent years, everyone's like,
I was just like, why is Johnny Depp playing Michael Jackson?
Yeah,
that's
weird.
I mean, I appreciate that he's trying to go in a different direction and not remake the Gene Wilder film. I get that.
Yeah.
But it just, every decision just seemed like it was the wrong decision. I know my kid actually watched it with me because they wanted they loved the other one, and they're just like, I'm just curious. I have to see how bad this is. So we watched it. This is bad.
Yeah.
And we never discussed it again.
Mm-hmm.
Much like your trip to the Neverland Ranch, you never discussed it again.
True.
KT?
I absolutely agree with you, Andy. I avoided this because somebody in the chats pointed this out. There gets to be this point where Tim Burton kind of feels like he's lost in between Guillermo del Toro and Terry Gilliam, and it's just so precious that you feel like you're going to know exactly what it looks like before you even watch it. So you feel like, why bother? There's so many other things I could watch. So I missed this on the way through. And you know what? It went down really easy. And I'm not a Sondheim kind of musical person. I'm way more of a pop musical, Alan Menken, Little Shop of Horrors. But there is a place where this kind of overlaps that. And if you've been missing it, it's October. Put it on. Watch episode 6 of season 1 of Great British Bake Off. You'll find out how to make the meat pies. Make a meat pie, watch this movie, and just have a good warm fall Saturday. It's 2.5 hours, and it really goes down well for that length.
There's also a Binging with Baboosh, that channel that does that teaches you how to make stuff. They also do an episode on the meat pies. But so kick back, have a meat pie, and we'll see you next week.